Moses and Aaron approached Pharaoh time and time again, delivering the divine message, "Let my people go." However, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened, and he refused to release the Israelites. This defiance led to a series of 10 catastrophic plagues that demonstrated God's supreme power over the gods of Egypt and the natural world. These events revealed God's intention to free his people and assert his authority over even the most powerful of rulers. The first plague turned the waters of the Nile River to blood, killing fish and making the water undrinkable. This impacted Egypt's vital water supply and economy. Pharaoh's magicians replicated this plague, demonstrating that human efforts and occult practices had limits and offered no true remedy. The second plague brought an overwhelming infestation of frogs, which covered the land and invaded homes, kitchens, and bedrooms, disrupting daily life. Despite the nuisance and discomfort, Pharaoh's resistance persisted. The third plague was more severe. Gnats swarmed and tormented people and animals. This time, Pharaoh's magicians failed to replicate it, admitting, "This is the finger of God." Yet Pharaoh's defiance did not falter. The fourth plague unleashed swarms of flies that filled Egyptian homes, sparing the Israelites. This distinction between Egyptians and Israelites marked the beginning of a clear division. God's protection over his chosen people contrasted with the suffering of those who defied him. The fifth plague struck Egypt's livestock with a deadly disease, killing horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats. Once again, the livestock of the Israelites remained unharmed, showcasing God's ability to protect his people even amidst widespread destruction. The sixth plague brought painful boils that afflicted both Egyptians and their animals, causing suffering without reprieve. Pharaoh's magicians could do nothing to reverse the effects, emphasizing human limitation in the face of divine judgment. The seventh plague was a devastating hailstorm that crushed crops and killed livestock in the fields. Pharaoh briefly relented, acknowledging his sin and asking Moses to intercede with God to end the storm. However, once the hail ceased, Pharaoh hardened his heart again. The eighth plague brought locusts that devoured any remaining vegetation, decimating Egypt's food supply and plunging the nation into famine. Pharaoh's advisors pleaded with him to relent, but his stubbornness held firm. The penultimate plague cast an unnatural darkness over Egypt for 3 days, a direct challenge to Ra, the Egyptian sun god. This darkness symbolized God's control over creation and rendered the Egyptians powerless. Despite the ruinous effects of the first 9 plagues, Pharaoh continued to resist until the final and most devastating plague, the death of the firstborn. Before this, God gave Moses instructions for the Israelites to mark their doorframes with the blood of a lamb. This act of obedience would protect them as the angel of death passed through Egypt, sparing only those homes marked by the blood. The death of the firstborn, including Pharaoh's own son, brought unparalleled grief. This ultimate tragedy shattered Pharaoh's resolve, prompting him to summon Moses and Aaron and command them to take the Israelites and leave. The Israelites departed quickly, taking with them gold, silver, and clothing given by the Egyptians. Approximately 600,000 men, along with women, children, and livestock, began their journey toward freedom. This exodus marked the transformation of Israel from an enslaved people to a nation led by God. Applications: God's power over human obstinance. Pharaoh's repeated defiance in the face of the plagues demonstrates that human resistance cannot stand against God's sovereign will. This teaches us that, When God purposes something, it will come to pass, no matter how powerful the opposition appears to be. We are reminded to align our will with God's, recognizing His supreme authority. The importance of obedience and faith. The Israelites' act of marking their doorframes with lamb's blood required faith and obedience. This teaches us that following God's instructions, even when we do not fully understand them, can lead to protection and deliverance. We should trust and act on God's commands, knowing that He sees the bigger picture. God's provision in times of need. When the Israelites left Egypt, they took Egyptian wealth as God had instructed, providing them with resources for their journey. This shows that God equips His people with what they need for their mission. We can trust that God will provide for us in times of transition and need. Deliverance and praise. The Song of Moses and Miriam after the crossing of the Red Sea highlights the importance of acknowledging God's work in our lives. After experiencing deliverance, it is essential to pause and give thanks, celebrating God's faithfulness and power. This reminds us to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and worship. God's deliverance in hopeless situations. The parting of the Red Sea shows that when we face seemingly impossible circumstances, God can make a way. This application encourages us to trust in God's ability to deliver us from any situation, no matter how dire it may seem. We should hold on to hope and remain steadfast in faith, knowing that God is capable of the miraculous.